Hi, welcome to SCI-Arc Channel. I'm Hernan Diaz Alonso. I'm the director of SCI-Arc. I'm here in the contemporary Geffen of MOCA. Part of what we're trying to do with the SCI-Arc channels is also to understand architecture in the relation with a much larger context of culture, but particularly in Los Angeles. Congratulations, I think it's an extraordinary show.
Thank you.
And if I understand correctly, it's the first major retrospective on the work of Doug Aitken.
This is. Always think it's interesting at a certain moment in an artist's career to work with the artist and help the artist to take a step back and look at what happened during 20-25 years of work and edit with him, the strongest moment in the career.
And Doug has been one of the most influential artists in terms of the intersection with architecture, in relation with art, with film, and with certain also takes on the notion of architecture make him incredibly contemporary.
With Doug, you have core values or core ideas in the work, which are landscape, communication, and I would say exploded narratives. When I talk about exploded narrative, the way it's formalized is through this idea of immersive environment, and that I think it touches on architecture. So we're in an installation by Doug Aitken called Black Mirror. As you can see, it's an architecture, a reflective architecture of black mirror that totally explode the image that you're looking at. There is 1, 2, 3 video monitors that are showing us images of Chloé Sevigny traveling the world in unlikely spaces, anonymous motel room, no man's land, desert. And it's part of Doug Aitken's fascination with a few things. Fascination with the notion of landscape that we're going to see over and over again. What is contemporary landscape? What is the American landscape? The space we build between each other. And this notion of mirrors is extremely important for him because it breaks down the image, it breaks down the linear notion of what a narrative is. So this piece is now a piece of architecture that diffract and fracture both your reflection, your identity, and the way you interact with the narrative.
One of the things I find incredibly compelling about his work, and in the show works really, really well, is the idea of the dislocation or the reframe of normalcy, or what it seems like everyday activities, then with a small tweak, it produces a transcendent effect.
Well, I think what you're talking about, there is a transformative quality in Doug Aitken's work. When you enter, you're facing a transformative experience. If you create, as Doug does, an open-ended situation, you give leverage to the visitor. So here we're in a landscape, a real landscape that we brought into the museum. This installation is called Tonic Content. As you can see, it's a fountain that produces music. What we did here, that we dug a hole in the museum, filled with water. The hole is totally mic'd, and above this hole, above this pound of water, you have a grid of valves that release drops of water that produce this water music. The rhythm of each drop is totally controlled by a computer. It was written by the artist. It's a 30-minute composition. The importance of water today. It's here, recycled every day, but we're in a culture where water is one of our most precious elements to maintain our livelihood. And here you are in a place which could be a ruin. You don't know if it's a place that is being built or a place that is being destroyed. In many ways, Doug Aitken's work is warning us about the man-made disasters that surround us. So we went from a liquid landscape to now this installation called Diamond Sea, which is the first kind of multi-channel, multi-screen installation that Doug Aitken produced in 1996. What he did here is maybe one of his first attempts to create this expanded cinema, expanded narrative. And here the narrative, the film as it is, would be like a documentary film that focuses on this piece of land in Namibia, on the shore of West Africa, where Doug identified a territory that is kind of off the map. It's a gigantic and automated diamond mines where the presence of humans is limited to the strict minimum. Everything there is operated in this mine by computers and machinery. The piece of land itself used to be, at the end of the 19th century, a German colony that was abandoned. So you have the remains, a little bit like in Tonic Content, where you had the ruins of the building. Here you have the ruins of this community, this weird landscape, which is produced by entropy, as they sift the land and the sea to find diamonds. But at the end of the day, we are looking at a desolated piece of land which is controlled and eroded by the desire to find diamonds. So again, you have almost here a man-made disaster in the making.
There is something which I also find interesting, which is the notion of literality or literal as a new form of mechanism of production of art instead of abstraction. But it's critical with a kind of a tint of optimism.
So let's pretend now that we are in 2087 and I'm giving a tour to a group of students. So I would tell them, this object that you have here, at the end of the 20th century, was installed in many locations in cities. What people would do with them, they would use coins, money. At that time, money was material. They would put it in the little hole here. They would pick up the handle, dial a number here, put the object on there here, and they would talk to someone who was in another location. This object was called a telephone, and it was a way for people to communicate with each other. It is almost an archaeological object by now. It's totally an object of the past. It's almost a ghost of a moment in our life. In a telephone booth, you talk in the booth, you talk in the object. Here you don't, because the object is actually talking to you. In the base of the sculpture, you have a motion sensor that actually captures the movement around the object, and the light change when you have people around it. This installation called Song 1 was created for the Hernan Museum in Washington. All the images that you see around me in this kind of theater in the round were projected on the facade of the Hernan Museum a few years ago. So it was gigantic. The building became a narrative. The building of the Hernan is a round building designed by the architect Gordon Bunshaft. For Doug, it's a perfect shape, perfect circularity. The building is also on the Mall in Washington, which is the plaza where American democracy is celebrated. By doing this piece, Doug was extremely deliberate to find, for this perfect architecture, the perfect pop song, meaning a song that everybody will connect to, a song that everybody knows. He picked this song called I Only Have Eyes for You. And of course, I Only Have Eyes for You is about looking, it's about perception, it's about art, it's about the way we see the world. This piece was then translated for a museum scale, and Doug created this, again, theater in the round at the center of the exhibition. And what's very important to me here is that you enter the piece. You are at the center of the piece. You are at the center of this circle. And this circle define for the artist a plaza where people come together and experience something in common. At the same time, when you look at the images, you see individuals singing "I Only Have Eyes for You" in parking lot, in factories, in cars, and all of that also become a way for Doug Aitken to talk and represent our landscape, urban landscape, work landscape, and at some point, political landscape.
Doug Aitken, the other thing which I find very interesting about him and other artists in their generation is they also brought an entrepreneurial sense of art production. They also seem to be operating in creating a new market and a new territory. And this also to me is a very interesting break with certain tradition of art in some of these contemporary artists. And Doug seems to be one of them at the highest level.
And this level of independence allows him to spread out of what is exclusively the world of art, to make art better. What the artist did here, he created this circle made out of video monitors. The images that you see when you sit around this work of art are a group of rural auctioneer, people who sell car, cattle, objects, and who are known for this chant, the auctioneer chant, where they go extremely fast. And what Doug Aitken did, he asked them to actually perform their chant in the most unlikely places, in front empty lobbies of corporate building, parking lot, storage area, empty ballrooms. So you end up witnessing this group of people who are selling nothing in the middle of nowhere. So you're left with the sound, with almost this abstract music or abstract sound poetry, which is based on what you do when you want to trigger a very fast transaction. So you are facing basically the poetry of transaction, the poetry of capitalism. Here you have expanded poetry, or how can we expand poetry within our own culture? So here we are in an installation called Migration. The previous work we looked at auctioneers who were relocated in different areas outside of their comfort zone. Here you have something quite similar. See on the screen behind me these 3 screens installed on this large billboard structure, that what you see when you drive around the city of Los Angeles, this huge billboard that somehow dominates you. They don't dominate you anymore, they are at your eye level. What the artist did here, he traveled the entire country, booked motel rooms, and worked with animal specialists and brought animals in the room. So you're gonna see a fox, you're gonna see birds, an eagle, peacock, you'll see horse, you'll see a deer, a buffalo, a beaver. You see these animals who have invaded or are occupying our places. They took our place. When Doug Aitken did this installation, this work, almost simultaneously, an American writer named Alan Wiseman published a book called The World Without Us. Wiseman analyzed how long it would take for nature to take over if tomorrow morning none of us are here anymore. No more human beings, we have disappeared. What would it take for the world as we know it to collapse? So this work, with this very simple gesture of bringing animals where we are, for me is about that. What have we done to ourselves, to the animals, and to nature? The artist produces this little disjunction that forces you to look a little bit harder to listen a little bit closer, to pay a little bit more attention to what surrounds you, to the person next to you, to the landscape that you inhabit. Because if you don't, this is where we're going to end up, and we'll be gone.
We want to thank Philippe for his time, and we want to thank you for watching the SCI-Arc Channel.
And I want to thank you for inviting MOCA in your channel. We are neighbors, and for me to be able to share what we do with another institution make us stronger.